And traditional military thinking was about hierarchy, right? This general, and then your soldiers kind of executed. And that was not how Al-Qaeda was operating. So what they needed to figure out was really, how do they fight this new type of enemy? And the idea was, rather than having one large team, was to create a team of much smaller teams, hence the title of the book.
Hello, and welcome to the Better People podcast. My name is Holly DePalma, and I'm your host for our session today. I'll be speaking with Daniel DeFranco, who is the CEO of One Beat Dance Brands. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm just going to update that co-CEO. I'm actually co-CEO of One Beat Dance Brands.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay,
Sorry,
no problem.
So Daniel and I have been chatting, and I've decided that I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and go work for One Beat Dance Brands. So I am so excited to have this conversation. First, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and your journey to where you are now as the co-CEO of this organization?
Sure. So my name is Daniel DeFranco. And like I said, as you said, the co-CEO of One Beat Dance Brands. In 2011, I started Groove Productions LLC. The name of the competition was Groove. I had a background in event production. We would do, staging, sound, lighting, that sort of stuff. Very, very small scale, nothing like what we're doing now. And I also had a background in dance. So I was doing some choreography, some teaching, a little bit of auditioning. And we kind of let the two worlds fuse together. And I thought at the time, a lot of the events in the dance world that I was attending were decent competitions, but not very good events. They weren't well produced. They didn't have the right technology. They didn't have the right structure. And I thought we could combine those two worlds and create a really cool event. So I've always loved to craft an experience for attendees. I love when people walk in and they're excited about the atmosphere, the environment, the energy. That is the thing, I think, one of the things I'm most passionate about. And I love the art of dance, and I love working with kids, especially as time's gone on. I've grown to love that even more. And creating a positive environment for young people to dance is really, really fulfilling. And to do a good job at it, I think, is even more exciting. So anyway, Groove Productions, 2011, we ran our first touring season in 2012. And I think we had about 9 events that we ran. We grew that over the years. We started a second brand called Reverb. And on January 1st, 2024, we merged with a very excellent company, and my new partner, my co-CEO, and our COO, called Beyond the Stars. And they had a second brand called Breakout Dance Competition. And we have rolled those all together into One Beat Dance Brands. We will produce about, from 9 shows this next coming season, we'll do about 210 regional events in about 40 different states in the US. And I think we'll have probably total about 230 events, somewhere around there. So big steps this year. It's been really fun, but growth and new adventures is always what I'm after. I'm always chasing the next step, because I love a challenge and I love to learn.
Yeah, and what really comes through in your just overall general discussion is your passion for the events that you put on and what you do, which is so exciting to see, and it's like you can feel it. So you can feel in your conversation your love for what you do and what you bring to other people, to that customer.
Well, thanks. And, I will say that we just, I have merger on the brain, because that's what we just did. So my partners, they're actually a mother-daughter duo. So I'm their, I'm kind of the odd man out, but I love working with them. It's Ginny and Nikki Fauble, and they were the former owners of Beyond the Stars. Now my co-CEO, COO of the company. Finding someone who matched the passion was really, really hard. So I think we called it our dating period. So I think we dated for about a year and a half and had many, many late night dinners and discussions and plannings and will we, won't we. The two biggest things that were involved in that were finding a partner that could match passion and ethics. So they both want to put on the same level of quality events that we did, and they're both really, really high on the ethics scale. We talk things out, and they're always good at considering all people involved. And it's really been such a good adventure and a partnership. Better than I could have asked for. So anyway, not to get off topic, but I just wanted to shout them out.
No, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the partnership and about bringing two brands together, and
Sure.
a little bit about how that came about, why, and what the result has been.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of angles to this. So I'm going to start with the customer facing angle. So the first side of things is for our customers are the dance studios. We're a B2B company, and then their customers are the dancers, the parents, the competitors for us. So there's these three parties that are sort of involved in the event. There's the studio owner, there's the parent, and there's the dancer. And all three of them matter, and all three of them have different needs. And you have to focus on all three of their needs in a very different way. And that's one of the challenges actually of the business is we have this customer, this attendee, and the parent, who's typically the financier, the buyer, if you will. And balancing all of their needs is hard. So one of the biggest challenges from all three of those parties' perspective is the competition industry is large. It's grown a lot over the years, but it is still run like a cottage industry. So, for example, we have all up until 2024, we had all different sets of rules. You could go to one event. And a small group would be, 4 to 10 people. You could go to another event and it would be 4 to 12 people. The rules were scattered. So as a studio owner, they're creating and choreographing these pieces, and they don't fit correctly into every event that they attend. So one of the big advantages that we saw was being able to take rules and standardize them. So we haven't standardized our awards. Different brands will give out different awards, but what scores we're using, what divisions we're using, what age groups we're using, we have standardized, and we actually have opened it up to other competitions that are not a member of 1B, and we've launched it as USDR, United States Dance Regulators, and it's an opportunity for everyone out there to follow the core sets of rules that we've had. So from a customer perspective, we standardized rules. We created some loyalty programs for them to attend multiple brands, so it benefits them financially. We are rolling everybody into the same registration software. So entering all of your dancers and entries and the detail about the dance into a piece of software is a huge project for a studio owner. And lots of studio owners, some have a big support system, but there are some who are one woman, one man shows that are teaching, they're running the desk, they're doing the competition registry. It's a big project. So being able to enter all of your data once for the season and then just click 3 competitions you want to go to is super beneficial for the studio owner as well. And then beyond that, so that's the customer side of things. Beyond that, there is of course, you'll see economies of scale that come out of it. So we don't need 2 HR departments. We don't need 2 accounting departments. Filing taxes for a company that operates in 40 states is a massive, massive project. So now we only have to do that once instead of twice. That's very, very helpful. A lot of the compliance issues have become much, much more efficient. And the other thing I'll say is, I think the things we specialized in as companies were very, very different. There was very little overlap. So we very quickly jumped to lean on some of the strengths that they had. They very quickly jumped to lean on some of the strengths we had. One of the things that we've both taken on different vertical integrations. So one of the vertical integrations they took on was they basically built out a screen printing shop, and they do all of their own manufacturing of all of the merchandise that now both brands produce, or all 4 brands produce. So that's a vertical that they were able to integrate. We developed our own in-house software to register the studios, manage the employees. So they've ditched the software subscription they were paying. They're going to load onto our software. We're going to load onto their screen printing system. And the overlap in vertical integration has been shockingly minimal. So leaning on another company's strengths has been incredible. And it's, it's been great. It's my first it's a huge step to take what you've built over your whole life and, jump in the same boat as somebody else. But when everybody cares, you take a lot of care not to tip the boat over. And now we have three captains watching the waters instead of one. So I'm thrilled. And I also have great partners. I know lots of people have nightmare partnership stories, but I got very, very lucky.
Yeah. So a little layer down, that's, the economies of scale and, your different sort of specialties and within your business. It sort of sounds like a nice glove fit. Talk to me about the employees. How did you go through the process of taking two different businesses and molding them together down below? Obviously, there was some duplication. You didn't need it all. Tell me about that.
So that's a great question. There's been some duplication. However, we kind of took on the mindset that as we merge, we want this to be better for everybody. It needs to be better for the customer. It needs to be better for the partners. It needs to be better for the employees. So we tend to err on the more generous side of things. So we have time off policies we're comparing, and we sort of end up going, listen, we want people to come out of this situation better than when we went in. This needs to feel better for everybody, not just for us. So we tend to err on the more generous or more liberal side of policies and procedures and that sort of thing. We also kind of took the mindset from the beginning of, look, we're going to have duplications. We are going to have people that we don't need, but let's reframe that. And let's say that we're going to be this fast growing company as we have historically. And let's say that maybe there are people that we don't need right now. And let's build an infrastructure that allows us to grow. So rather than making any cuts right now, we're saying we have this new capacity where we're saving on work and resources on the back end. So instead of doing 210 shows a year, maybe next year we can get up to 250 and we won't have to hire. So we took the approach from the beginning that we're not cutting any jobs from this. We're going to keep everyone we have. And instead of reducing our payroll now, we're going to grow our ability to produce in the future. So we are setting ourselves up for that next level of growth. So one of the things we're doing is this year we run what we call 14 tours. So a tour is one route of cities. So in any given weekend, we can be in 14 different cities in the US at the same time. So this year, we're expanding that to 15. We're adding a 15th tour, and we can do it because we have the human capacity here. So we've kind of looked at the savings instead of saying, hey, let's cut employees and reduce total payroll right now. We've kind of said, let's keep the payroll we have now. Let's keep the employee structure that we have now so that we can grow in the future without having to do any hiring.
I love this. So then you clearly have your employees are like, we love this new, the idea that this wasn't a merge to cut costs, but it was really a merge to be able to grow more quickly and do what we do even better, which is fascinating.
I think the team has been mostly on board with it. I mean, of course, there's people. Change can scare some people, of course, right? So I wouldn't say there's been zero hesitancy. I will go into two of the challenges actually we've had. Well, one's sort of a benefit, one's a challenge. The first is as we've had more people, but the same level of functions, just at a larger scale. Not everything scales up one-to-one, we know, right? Things what happens at a small scale doesn't always work at a larger scale. So one of the things that we've seen is a little bit more specialization. So some jobs that used to be, hey, you do this and this have been divided, and now there's one person that does A and one person that does B. So a good example was we had one person that sort of handled all of our accounts payable, accounts receivable in the finance department, and we had one person from the one office, one person from the other, and we basically said, cool, we're going to split it. Your accounts payable, your accounts receivable. So you're doing less different work, but more volume of the same task, which I think really some people love, some people have pushed back on a little, but for the most part, I think people, as they're sort of polishing their skills, get better and better at it. The one thing that has been a little challenging is we've had maybe some leaders that came from both organizations and were both very qualified to do a job. And we sort of had to make decisions as to who is going to take that new leadership position on. It's gone pretty well Those are some of the harder decisions we've had to make, though. And a lot of it comes from having two really qualified people and just needing to have one person that is sort of the decision maker and the person that bears the responsibility. We're just about done with all those decisions. I think overall they've gone really well. And again, a lot of that comes to, comes down to the fact that our vertical integrations were so different. So the person here who used to be in charge of merchandise took on another deep role and passed that off to their merchandise people. And I don't think there's too much animosity there because they really have a nice system. And now we just have one person, well, actually we have two people, there are three, I think three, that are just running merchandise all the time, nothing else. And so they're getting better at it. They're more focused on it. And hopefully we'll see quality improve over time as well.
Yeah. And I think I might have been a little too Pollyanna about like, woo, yay, it's changed and it's great. And certainly there would be challenges. And I appreciate you sort of bringing me back into reality with that question. But it does, you really remind us that when you really are thoughtful about this kind of change and you're committed to doing the right thing. You mentioned ethics in the beginning about your partnership. While change is not easy for everyone, when it's the right decision and the right thing to do, you can tend to sort of have less of a hiccup through it, and have better sort of overall business results because of the way you go about that change.
Yes, totally. And I think it would be foolish to say that of out of 50 people that nobody would have an issue with the change. So, some people will. Some people have issues with change in the short term and then they adapt long term. I have this. There's a story of there was a tool I really wanted to put in place for one of the departments. I'm going off the topic a little. Bring me back if you need to. There was a tool I wanted to put in place for one of our departments, and the department really fought me on it. They were like, we don't want this. Like, everything's fine. Nothing's broken. We don't need to fix anything. And I was trying to look out into the future. So what the tool we have now was working, but at scale, I didn't see it working. So I wanted to get ahead of it a little bit. And every year we review all of our software subscriptions and do we want to ditch anything? Do we want to keep anything? And I said after the first year, I was like, hey, do we want to ditch? I don't want to name the product, but do we want to ditch so-and-so? And they were like, no, we can't take that away. Like, we have to keep that. And it went from this idea of like resistance in the future to actually not knowing how to function without it. So I do find that some of those people that are uncomfortable with change, if you force them a little bit in the beginning, don't push too hard, but a little bit of a push, a lot of times people will get on board and be more excited with the new product than the old. It's just hard to sometimes see what the future is going to look like. That's really, really hard.
And that really is the role of the leader, right? Is to know those moments or to be confident in those moments where you do have to push.
I'm going to say be confident. I like be confident because I don't always know. Sometimes I'm wrong, but yes, to strategically push, I think.
Yeah. And to take the risk. It's really that risk, right? It isn't knowing, but it's taking the risk to say, trust me. And if your folks, I mean, like, let's face it, like, businesses are not a democracy, right? Like, it's, no, you're not getting voted out, right? Like, it's
yeah. Well, yeah. I think if you make enough bad decisions, your customers and your employees will vote you out, right? Maybe each decision's not democratic, but your success is somewhat democratic, especially in like a competitive labor market. If you want to keep quality employees around, you need to make enough decisions that are popular among your team for them to believe in you and stick to the job, or maybe they can get a better deal somewhere else. So it's not officially democratic, but popular support is important.
Indeed, absolutely, indeed, and sort of, you being in the business of customer service, right, is highly contingent on an engaged workforce.
Huge.
And maintaining that engaged workforce And I'm going to skip over, sort of add a complexity to the idea of keeping an engaged workforce with the idea or your reality that you have batch hiring. Where you have massive amounts of people that you hire for your season. And that group has to be maintaining your culture, your ethics, your level of commitment to the customer. Talk to me about that and the challenge that is, and how do you do that?
Yeah. So that is. Let me talk a little bit about what it looks like first, and then I can talk about the seasonality of it. So one of the things. So we have about 50 core full-time employees that are with us year round. Really great buy-in among them. That's easier to do. This is their career. They're here for the long haul. Good benefits, good working conditions, all that kind of stuff. They're pretty bought into that. The bigger challenge is we go from a company of 50 employees to a company of 350 employees, basically in 2 weeks. And that hiring takes place anywhere. We're always playing with the start dates, right? Because we actually have this issue of drop off from hire to start of season, and we've always tried to time it perfectly so that we don't want people interviewing in September, getting an offer in October, but they don't start work until February because lots of people have moved on and done other things. So we're always playing with that timeline. But we will start opening some job positions in October. We will hire about 300. Sorry, that's not correct. Lots of people will come back year after year too. So let's say half come back. I actually think it's a bit higher than that now, but just for easy numbers, let's say 150 come back. We'll hire 150 people maybe between October and January. We have a massive training event in January. We fly all of those people to our headquarters, and we put on a mock show, a training show where we invite real studios and dancers to come perform, and we tell them, hey, don't judge us. This is going to be messy. We're here to learn. So we're going to be late. We're going to be early. It's not going to be organized, and they come for free. They don't pay or anything. But it's a good experience for them to test their dances out on stage, and our employees to get interactions with real studios, real dancers, all of that sort of stuff. So we bring them on, we train them. We have this training event. We do some bonding activities. But the truth is, with 150 people that are new, we are going to have some we're going to have some varying quality levels, right? Some people are going to be rock stars, and some people are not going to be a good fit for the job. And actually, that's the most common thing, is that some people, it's just not the job for them. I pitch the job in these interviews. If we have, I don't do a ton of interviews anymore, but if I do, I'll say, if you like, if you're okay with delayed flights and cold food and like really a bit of a roughing it condition on these weekends, this is the job for you. It's hard. It's a hard job. So one of the things we try to instill in everybody is our core values. I think living them is, or how they translate into action is always a little bit different than maybe how I see them. And I think the buy-in varies. The importance of the buy-in really varies based on the job. We try to hire for our backstage positions and for our merchandise positions, a lot of those customer-facing positions, individuals that maybe came up through the competition circuit and are really passionate about creating the memories that they have for the next generation of dancers. I think that is the best way to get buy-in, because they have memories of meeting a backstage manager at an event and making like this, sort of role model friend that they could look up to, and they cheered for them when they came off the stage. They wished them good luck before they went on. That's very hard to empathize and connect with if you haven't been through it as a child. And I don't think that's as important for, say, our videographers, who are really somebody that we need technical skills from. We need you to understand the mechanics of a camera, come train, understand framing, understand how to track a dancer. And if you didn't have those dance memories yourself, it's always a plus, but if you didn't have that experience yourself, I still think you could be a great videographer. Some of our best videographers have never had dance experience before. So the first key, I think, is in the hiring process and trying to match the right personality to the right job and position. And then the second big piece is training, which is hard. And I think we always weed out a few people during training. They figure out it's not the job for them. We figure out it's not the right match. Typically they figure it out on their own though. And then the third piece is in the first couple of weeks, we have a really good feedback loop. So all of our directors on site will fill out not a little, it's actually a very long event recap form with all sorts of information. And one of them is just on each employee, just kind of what they did well, what they need to work on. And then our HR department will collect that information over the first 2 weekends and try to provide each employee with a little bit of positive feedback and a little bit of where they can improve feedback. And then if there is a trend, so if it's like, this is easy, but let's say somebody showed up late, it's 5 minutes late to a call time twice. We'll track a trend. We have this habitual lateness trend. We'll set a goal for that person. We'll say, hey, let's try not to be late for the next 2 weeks or at all ever, that would even be better. But, we'll set that goal and then we'll try to collect that feedback from the director on site that weekend to see, was that person late? Were they on time? And see if we can make improvement from there. The hard part is with that feedback loop is we produce this series of events in 15 to 16 weekends. So if it takes 2 weekends to collect data, 1 to provide feedback, we're already 3 weeks into that 15-week season. And now we got to make a choice. Is this person going to hack it or are they not? So we also do a slight bit of overhiring, knowing that we'll have some drop off. The hardest challenge is knowing where that drop off will be. We can shuffle a backstage manager to merch if we need to. It's very hard to shuffle, say, an audio tech to merchandise or a merchandise salesperson to video because there's a set of tech skills involved. So that brings us to kind of our, like what we call like our bench, which is maybe some past employees that really enjoyed their experience working here on the road. They can't commit to, I think we have a regular minimum for new hires of 6 or 7 events that they have to work. They can't commit to that full set of events, but they were like, we love 1B. I want to come back. I got a full-time job. I've aged out. I have a family, whatever it is. Just can't do road life anymore. We go to that bench and they're typically our fillers for our 1, 2, 3 events a year to come to a show, fill in. And it's kind of a cool way to keep the employee life cycle long too. It keeps us connected with some of these historic employees that have been around a while. And also that's been really cool for culture because you'll have a road crew that says, oh man, Mark's here. We haven't seen Mark in 2 years. How you doing, man? Welcome back. And it brings a nostalgia to the job, which has been kind of cool. So that was a change we made last year at the behest of our people and culture manager. She had said, we have these people that can't commit to a lot of shows, but they still have a lot of value to us. How would you feel about using them as filler? And I'm so glad she came up with that idea because it really has kind of kept some historical knowledge in the company and solidified the culture over like a long term. So that was the other piece. So yeah, those are the 3 pieces: good hiring, good training, and then feedback on site, which now that I'm saying it sounds no different than any other company would say, right? Those are the 3 key points there. But I think the bigger difference is doing it in that compacted timeline.
Well, and I also think a significant difference is the job of your leader who's giving all that feedback. That's a pretty significant amount of it's so much data in such a short period of time that somebody's responsible for making sure that gets done. How do you train your leaders to find that process valuable? Because as we know, leaders manage 2 things. They manage the job being done and the people doing it. And how do you make sure that they value the focus of both?
Yeah, and I'm going to add another level of complexity to that, which is some of our leaders on the road will only work with some of the employees for maybe 3 shows, right? So there's this feedback loop that is it's very easy to dismiss something if I know, oh, this is my last show with this person. Like I won't have to deal with this in the future. So I'm just going to let it go. So it's been, our goal was to connect. So at any given weekend, we'll have 15 teams operating across the country. And those are independent teams that need to function independently, but they also need to function as one team. That is a really, really hard goal to accomplish. There's a book I really like. I'm sure you've read, I'm not. I don't know if everyone's as passionate about it as I am, but Team of Teams by Stanley McChrystal. Have you read that book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, it's a really interesting book, and the I don't want to go too much into the detail because I'll go off on a tangent on it. But the basic premise was, and this is so much more serious than what we do. We're not saving lives out here. We're just producing dance competitions and having a great time and creating a good environment. We take what we do seriously, but we try not to take ourselves seriously is the goal, because we are working with kids. We want to keep it light, but. The Stanley McChrystal book, he was the head of the Joint Task Force, I believe, for kind of when they were fighting the Al-Qaeda battle. And what they couldn't figure out was they would take out a cell in Al-Qaeda and another one would just pop up. And there was no central authority. And traditional military thinking was about
Hierarchy.
Hierarchy, right. This general, and then your soldiers kind of executed. And that was not how Al-Qaeda was operating. So what they needed to figure out was really how do they fight this new type of enemy? And the idea was, rather than having one large team, was to create a team of much smaller teams, hence the title of the book. So we kind of took some of that inspiration and developed this grid structure, one of which is your event team. So your event team starts with your person on site. That leader on site is in charge of taking care of everyone on site. If somebody gets sick, if somebody needs to go to the hospital, if somebody has a question, if somebody needs a break, the director and assistant director are responsible for the team on site. Those quick little things that need to be solved. Those leaders are empowered by, hopefully, the empathy that we look for in our leadership to connect with the people on the ground. And we tell them these people are in your care. We have people that have never gotten on an airplane before. It may be very routine to you, but to them, getting delayed may feel like the end of the world. You got to be mom, dad, their support system on the road, because they might not have the answer. Then everybody has a leader for their position. So our audio techs have a leader. We call them our team leads. Our audio techs have a leader. Our scorekeepers have a leader. And when they have a technical problem that they can't solve, before they go to their director on site, they're in their group message or their group Slack with their team members, trying to solve that with the team lead. So while you're connected to the team you're physically with on the ground, there's also this connection to all the other 15 teams that are out on the road. And you feel like you're connecting with these people that maybe you've never worked with. And you could even get a response like, oh, I'm in Seattle and we just had this problem and so-and-so told me to do this and it fixed it. Awesome, great. So there is this cross connection you have to have between the physical teams and the sort of, I don't want to say theoretical, but the like the job-based teams. So that structure has really, really helped us. And when you say, how do we train our leaders? I think we are probably better at picking leaders than we are training. Training leaders is very hard. I think one of the things we do is we look for people with the right traits and that are behaving in the right way to help mentor them into being leaders. Training leaders is hard. I think it's a high EQ. I think it's being able to see problems before they become problems, good foresight. And I think it's being able to communicate directly and deliver a message. It's one of the things we talk about is when we're delivering hard feedback or hard pieces of the hard discussions that you have to have, is we don't want to sugarcoat it so much that the message wasn't received. But we also want to make sure that we don't offend and we don't isolate the other person and push them off our team. So those are the three things we really look for: those good communicators, high on EQ, and the ability to foresee problems before they become problems. And I think that's actually even bigger in our industry because we're at events. So we need someone to walk in and go, we're going to have a traffic flow issue here. We're going to reroute people to push them through this door instead of this door before everyone arrives and there's a traffic flow issue. So training, I think, is really done through kind of our mentorship program. People will go on the road for at least a year with an existing leader before we send them out on their own. But I think picking leaders is actually more important to us than training them. And I don't know if that's popular conjecture or not, but
you assess. You said EQ is very important. Do you assess potential leaders' EQ?
Yeah, we try.
No, I mean like EQ assessment, like data.
Yeah, we've used like some Myers-Briggs tests for that. We've used There's another platform that's escaping me right now that we've used. But yes, we do. We've used a couple of those different tools in varying capacities over the years.
You, I heard the word mentor program. So, do you have a formalized mentoring program?
We sort of have a dual mentoring program. So the first mentoring program is for those 50 full-time employees. When we hire a new full-time employee, they're immediately assigned a mentor. And it's always somebody on a different team. And it's somebody who has been here for a while and has some good experience and is not their senior. So, excuse me. Pardon me. So that mentor program is really more about showing them the ropes. How do I request time off? How do I do this? How do we use Asana? How do we use Slack? That sort of stuff. So that mentor program is more of like a liaison almost. And then on the road, we have all of our leadership teams split into two people. We have directors and we have assistant directors. And some of this is a little bit varying based on, we still have two companies that we're putting together. So there's a little bit different procedures that go on in both companies, but we're streamlining them as time goes on. So we have the leader who's really responsible for the event, and then what we call our assistant director, who is learning the role, but also assisting in the sort of activities that need to go on at an event. So that is sort of our pipeline for new leaders coming up. And each week they will work with a different we can collect we can collect all the, we used to go out in pairs, actually. We used to send them out in pairs, but we found you can kind of learn more when you're rotating people that you're working with. Somebody might be really good at A and not so good at B, and then this other person's really good at B and not at C. So rotating leaders, we found people will come up and they'll go, oh, I really like the way Ben does blah, 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 or I really like the way Marianne does so-and-so. And the rotation has been nice. They collect their skills throughout the year. At the end of the year, we'll assess. We may try them out on a show, see how they sort of do on the road. We'll do that with what we call a trainer, which is a senior director that goes out. They may let them start the show on their own, come in at 10 o'clock, check in, give some feedback, leave, come back again. So we have this program where they go out with a leader, they learn, then they'll go into trainer mode where we send out a trainer to kind of teach them. And then hopefully we push them out of the nest and they fly. So
tell me, I feel like I could talk to you all day. But I have time limitations, as I know you're the one with the time limitations. But what are you most proud of with respect to the environment you've created, the culture you've created, the people you've developed? Tell me what you're most proud
of. A couple things are coming to mind. I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times, well, I don't know if this is true for everybody else, but for me, I try not to spend too much time on the pride side of things because that means I'm not growing. Like I want to just focus on the next and the growth and the new, but it is important to reflect, I think. We have some people that have been here for a really, really long time. I was actually working we were in Galveston, breaking down after our last canceled day from the hurricane that just came through there, and everybody's safe, everybody's good. But I was working with a team member that has worked here she took a job with us when she was 18, worked on the road, worked her way up to team lead, worked her way up to assistant director. Now she's our VP of production here and manages a team of like 5 full-time people. And she was running the event. And her and I, we don't work on the road together much, and her and I were doing something together. And I said, I love working with you. We're not even talking. We just kind of like are speaking the same language. And we started chatting and she's like, yeah, I've been here for like 10 years. And I was like, wow, like it doesn't feel like that to me, but we have a lot of people that have done like 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And what I think I'm proud of from that perspective is that we've created a company and a culture and a growth mindset that these people have really bought into, right? So like you can cheerlead and you can like sing core values and sing mission statement, but the proof is in the pudding. How long are people sticking with you? How long are people putting their own living and well-being and their bills and their own financial situation in your court? And I think having that long-term belief in the company we've built is probably the most tangible reward. People that have stayed around and said, yeah, this is the place I want to be. This is where I want to develop my skills and, have my career grow. So that's one. The other one is, I think, I think one of the things we're always doing is we're always putting out fires. We're always problem solving. It was mid-COVID where really this was a hard industry during COVID. We were the first to shut down, the last to come back. And when we were sort of hiring out of the COVID season, the labor market was rough. We were hiring people that could breathe, just anyone we could get at the time. It was tough. And I remember dealing with lots and lots of like complaints and upset employees and things and I just said to our people and culture manager, I was like, man, like, is anybody is it just always problems all the time? And at the end of the season, they send out a survey and they're like, it's anonymous. People can fill out how happy they were. And she's like, do you want to hear the survey results? And I was like, ugh, I don't know. And she's like, the employee satisfaction was an 8 out of 10. I was like, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. So I think one of the other things I'm proud of is, even though so much of what we do is focused on problem solving and putting out fires, I think a majority of people that come through our team really have a great experience. They get to travel the country. They make a bunch of money in a weekend. They make a lot of new friends. They bond with people in the arts who, let's be honest, anyone involved in the arts, we're typically a little quirky, and connect well with other people in that same world. And it's a fun, laid back job. We're not bankers. We are producing children's events in the dance world. It's a really, really fun atmosphere to be in. You can get on stage and put on a silly hat and dance with the kids and be a goofball. They love it. You love it. And you get to have a good time. So I think the overall experience we're in, partially attributed to the industry and partially attributed to the company we've built. I think I'm really proud of the positivity that most people walk away with. Most, I won't say all, most.
I will ask one final question,
sure.
And that is, what advice do you have to an entrepreneurial leader around creating and maintaining this type of culture that has seems to be part of One Beat Dance Brands?
Well, let me think. The first thing I would say is make sure you're building a culture that you would like to work in, I think. And I think I want to enjoy going to work at least most days, not every day. It's sometimes we go because it's work, but most days I want to enjoy the place and the people that I'm working with. And I do think culture is a very abstract concept that we talk about. And we talk about building a culture, and we talk about curating a culture and scaling a culture. And I don't know if it's as scientific as sometimes leaders and entrepreneurs talk about. For me, I think if I allow the behaviors that I would want to see, and I disallow the behaviors that I wouldn't want even of myself, I think naturally you will attract people that are like-minded or want the same things. And that doesn't have to be unanimously true across all echelons of the business, right? I need all of my full-time employees to know our core values. I need our road employees to really like one or two of the core values. I need different levels of buy-in at different levels of the organization. And okay, so I'll give an example. We throughout this merge, one of the really key leaders that I've had here for a long time, she's a total rock star, has shifted and is kind of reporting to my co-CEO now. And we've in the shuffle, and it's going well and all that. And my co-CEO said to me, she was like, wow, I really see how you guys work well together. I really see how you get along. You guys are so similar. She's like, you're both fast, you're matter of fact, you have the same sort of parameters. And I didn't set out for that, but she's another one that's been here for, 10, 11 years, something like that. And I just think if it works, if you jive, those people are going to stick around. So I would just say, don't tolerate behaviors that you're not okay with, and be really open and flexible to behaviors that you are okay with, and do it from a perspective of, if I were an employee at my company, how would I behave? And what would I say? What would I find acceptable and what would I not? And I think your culture will somewhat naturally develop around that. I'm talking about longevity, but we've had people that have worked here for 3 months. They come in, they do something, I'm like, no, you're not, that doesn't fly here, not happening. And they get enough of that sort of direct feedback. And sometimes it doesn't even have to come from me. As we've grown as a team, the team will enforce it. They'll be like, so-and-so is late to an event. What the hell was that about? And I don't need to be the one to do it anymore because the culture now dictates it. So I think I would say that's number one. And then number two is when you're starting a business, man, if I could go back and start from the beginning, the things I would do differently. But when you're starting a business, don't make decisions based on the business you're running right now. Make decisions based on the business you want to run in the future. Mm. There are decisions I made when we were two people sitting at my mother's kitchen table that are still stuck with me now. It is so much harder to change a decision or a piece of culture than it is to set out on the right path for the beginning. So think down the road. Live in the moment, but plan for what your company could potentially be one day, because there are decisions you can make that become harder and harder and harder to shake as the company grows.
I love that. Daniel DeFranco, I have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for being so generous with your time and insights, and best of luck to you.
Me too. Thank you so much. This is really cool.
My pleasure. Take care.